Hi, I'm Chris with the Freebirds, and I wanted to take a minute to tell you about closing in the side of the bus with our new skin. So we cut and lifted the bus up 38 inches, and now we've got to fabricate and put in sheet metal to close in the sides. So what I did was I got 5 sheets of 18 gauge steel. They're 4 foot wide by 10 foot long, and that's going to give me enough to close in. It's going to be 2.5 sheets per side, 5 sheets total. That's just for the sides. I still got to finish up fabricating and closing in the back and the front, but that's what we're doing now. We're cutting the sheets down to they're 4 foot wide when I only have about 42 inches that I need to fill in. So I'm actually cutting about 6 inches off the top of each sheet. So that's 10 foot sections that I'm cutting 6 inches off of, so that I can fit it up in there, not have too much extra space, extra weight, extra hang on that and dealing with it. And I'm just using my angle grinder to cut these with, and I'm using just a thin metal cutting blade for it. And here's how it's going. Okay, so now I got the 6 inches cut off of the sheet, and I've got it down to the size that I need, but I've got a really rough edge now. There's little pieces of metal split around, because it's really hard to cut exactly straight the way I'm doing it. So there's little folds and shears of metal all over the place. So I'm gonna swap over to kind of a little 60 grit buffing sandpaper disc, and this is gonna allow me to clean up this edge without really taking too much off. So you just take your thin bit off, swap over to your 60 grit. And right now what we're doing is we're finishing up adding to the sheet metal to the side of the bus. First, we are applying silicone. That's what Hope's doing right now. Hi. And what I got was, I just got some GE 100% silicone, clear, waterproof, mold resistant, all that fun stuff. I put this sheet metal up there and smash it on, and it's just gonna like squeeze out right through all the holes and stuff, and really get in there good. It'll help to close it up together. It'll help seal the sheet metal to sheet metal. Anywhere where it's touching there, it's going to help create a waterproof seal, just to increase the longevity of this metal that we're putting up, without it getting water and stuff in there. And that's it. That's what we're doing. We're going to put that last sheet up. We're going to drill our holes, cleco it into place, and then we can come through and rivet this whole side and get it done. Okay, so once we got the silicone in place, we took the our steel sheet metal and lifted it up into place and got it. It's hard, especially with these longer 10-foot heavier sheets. I mean, once you put that silicone in place, you got to kind of get it up into position and hover right over the silicone without smashing it into there and moving it around. Our first sheet, horrible. We had silicone all over the place. But we got pretty good at it after a while. But anyway, once you get the silicone on, you get the sheet metal up into place. What I did was, we had a lot of hands on it holding it into place, and then I took some square clamps, some box clamps, welding clamps, whatever you want to call them. I just used some of these and put them on the metal to hold it into place. And that just clamped it real tight into there, squished it together, You know, we still had the hands on it, but it allowed it to alleviate a little bit of that weight. And so once I clamped it into place and I made sure it was straight where I wanted it to be and all lined up and everything, I grabbed my my drill, and I've already got the holes in my steel angles. So all I had to do was punch a couple of holes real quick. You know, punch the hole here, and we were able to get a cleco in it, and then I kind of went up and down and along just to kind of cleco it in several spots in the place. You can see I didn't drill all these holes yet. I just got kind of sporadic clecos there to get it drilled into place. And for drilling all these holes, we kind of actually lucked out. You know, I've got a DeWalt impact drill. DeWalt makes a 3/16 drill bit. This is a pilot point. So it actually has a little divot on the tip. So whenever you go to drill your hole, it keeps it into place. If you've ever tried to drill a hole before, especially through metal, it'll slide all around and be kind of hard to get where you want. But this makes it really easy. We didn't have any problems lining this up exactly where we want it and get all our holes through. One of these bits made it through several hundred holes, no problem. The impact drill's making it really easy. So really, like putting the hole in there to put the cleco in, just 2 seconds, boom, right through, and we were able to put a cleco in. If you don't know what the clecos are, or if you're unfamiliar with them, basically the clecos are sheet metal clamps, essentially. They're used extensively in aviation building and race car building and stuff, hot rods and whatnot. But anytime you have two pieces of metal and you're trying to rivet them together, you drill your holes and get it all set up. And as you drill your holes, you can take these clecos and these clamps here and put them in some of the holes, which will actually hold that metal and form it into place. And clecos are really easy to use. This is just a standard spring-loaded cleco. And you can see it's it's got this shaft here and these two prongs that go around the shaft. And there's a cleco tool. You put it in here so that it lips into place, and you line this other part up with the cup. And then as you squeeze this together, these two prongs are pushed past the center piece, and they're close to and they're brought close together as they do that. You stick these into your hole, and whenever you release, it tightens back on itself. So obviously we took out all the window and all the hardware that goes along the base of the window and on the sides in between the window, and then we actually chose to cut right through the top of all of our window frames. It prevented me from having to sawzall all the metal all the way around the bus, and it left me all the original rivet holes and everything from the original skin of the bus and the flap and everything. So I keep that design without having to cut through it. So I cut through the windows here. Then we lifted the bus up and welded our framing back into place. And then when I went to put the sheet metal up, what I ended up with is, because I didn't have to take all the rivets back, I just had to take the whole line of rivets out normal to get my separation when I lifted up. But the problem I ran into when I started trying to put the sheet metal back in is, if you can see, there's rivets here along the natural skin of the bus, the original skin. These two rivets go all the way over the top and down the other side. And it does this in 4 different spots along the side of the bus. Well, my problem is when I started pushing my sheet metal up, I cut the sheet metal a little longer than my gap so that it would kind of push up into the ceiling. Well, these rivets up at the top were stopping me and preventing me from being able to push that. I couldn't figure it. At first I was like, what the heck's going on? Why isn't this going up? I measured it out and everything, and everybody's sitting there holding. This is the first sheet we're working on. Everybody's holding it. Everybody's kind of freaking out because it's getting heavy. So I was able to clamp it into place and kind of step back, and I realized that it was those rivets. So once I started doing the other sheets, it was a lot easier. That wasn't a problem. But basically I could just go inside, the way I chose to do the rivets and what worked easier for me is I used a smaller drill bit, actually my 3/16 drill bit on the back of the original rivets, I put it right in the center, started a little pilot hole, little divot, and then I took my larger drill bit. I'm not sure what size it was, maybe a 5/16 or so. Used my larger drill bit and drilled out the back side of the rivet, and then I took a little punch and a hammer and just tapped it, and I was able to shoot these original rivets, just pop them right out and move them out of my way and separate the original skin from the steel framework inside. Okay, so we got all the metal on the outside of the bus, and it's time to start doing the rivets on the side. First I gotta drill all the holes. So we already have holes in the steel angle that we welded to the bus, but now we have to put the holes in the sheet metal that we put on. I'm gonna be using, what I'm using is a 3/16. My rivet sizes are 3/16 in diameter, so I'm using a 3/16 drill bit. Check the description if you want some links to any of that stuff, and I'm gonna go ahead and drill these holes in. Okay, so now that I've got my holes drilled, what I need to do is I need to remove the clecos I have on this line, and then I need to clean up where I drilled the holes. There's some metal shaving still attached. I'm going to use my grinder with a sandpaper tool. I'm just going to touch up those holes real quick so there's no sharp metal around. Then I'm going to put my rivets in, and I'm going to use my rivet gun. Is that loud enough? I'm grinding. Because we messed up the bus.